I'd like to get this meeting of the Academic Senate at Santa Barbara City College called to order. The day is Wednesday, October 27th. The time is now 3:02 p.m. So our Zoom meeting guidelines, unless you are providing public comment or are an invited guest or presenter, you can only speak during the public comment periods, either at the beginning of the meeting or before one of our agendized items. For anyone in the meeting to indicate that you would like to speak, please raise your virtual hand in the Zoom controls to indicate that you would like to speak. Approval of the agenda. The agenda, unless I hear otherwise, will be accepted as posted and distributed, which brings us to, oh, you know what? I forgot our Academic Senate community values, and I picked out a good one today, I think, to highlight. So our Senate community values that are shared at every single meeting is on our agenda for people to review. I'd like to highlight and share today number 2, commit to learning from each other, listen to each other, and acknowledge that we all come from different backgrounds, skills, interests, abilities, and values. We realize that it is these very differences that will increase our awareness and understanding, and I'll add to it today, and it increases the value of the work that comes out of the Senate as well. Okay, right on. So going back to our agenda, item 3.1, public comments. So at this time, the public, anyone from the public can address the Academic Senate. You'll have 3 minutes to do so. And if you would like to give a public comment about a specific agenda item, now is your time also to declare to do so. Those from the Santa Barbara City College community are invited to give public comment now, or you will be invited throughout the meeting. So I know of at least one public comment request, but that person may want to give it before an agenda item. And I'm seeing your hand raised now. Melissa?
I'll do it now, if that's okay.
All right, go for it, Melissa.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm here today to provide my feedback regarding action item 8.3, a Senate endorsed syllabus or institutional statement regarding the lack of online resources for students enrolled in face-to-face classes for spring 2022. As the new project director of the recently awarded $3 million Title V HSI grant, it is disheartening to read the possibility that our faculty want to go backwards in our equity work and inclusion efforts instead of forwards. Much of the research and data I've read regarding the impacts of COVID-19 illustrate that our already most vulnerable populations are the ones suffering the most negative impacts. Our interim EVP, Dr. Scott, recently shared an article with me that I believe Rob Brown started circulating among Sbcc colleagues. Thanks, Rob. Highlighting the decreased enrollment for California community colleges and the increased enrollment for UC and CSU systems. The article was published in San Francisco Chronicle, and it's titled, How the Pandemic Affected Enrollment at the University of California and California's Community Colleges Differently. In the article, Executive Vice Chancellor Dr. Lisette Navarrete explains why we just can't overestimate the level of responsibility that the students that we serve have to their families and to this notion of working as a necessity. When you think about communities that have to make real choices about what to do during very challenging times, the choice often becomes, what can I do to survive? And education can become second on the list for many of these students. We are still in a pandemic. We will still be in a pandemic in spring of 2022. Our most vulnerable students, who many of us are here to serve and support, are also still in a pandemic. Our students have complex lives. This issue is a complex one that goes beyond a simple statement or policy. I understand that folks are expressing concerns that the administration has been unresponsive to needs of faculty and staff, and this statement seems to speak to workload conditions and compensation for faculty. But my concern with this statement is it does not solve nor even address that issue. It may be a statement meant to prevent uncompensated work for faculty, but it actually may create unintended harm to students. So if the motivation is about supporting faculty, then we should focus on that issue. And since the majority of our faculty are adjunct, we need to solve that issue for their morale in times of low enrollment and less course offerings. Students need to be clear about how expectations differ depending on the modality, face-to-face, hybrid, online synchronous, online hybrid synchronous, and asynchronous online. Perhaps this sort of messaging should be the focus, supporting students to understand their options. As I read this statement as written on the agenda, it inflicts harm on students. And based on my experience teaching in person this semester, that harm will perpetuate institutional and systemic racism and classism. I do understand that these same student populations have traditionally done better in a face-to-face setting, and we want to encourage them to attend their face-to-face classes, but the situation isn't normal, and I'm not sure forcing them to be in class or denying them online materials is the best solution. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Melissa. We'll be sure to reflect on your words as we arrive at item 8.3. Is there anyone else that would like to provide public comment at this time? If so, please raise your hand to do so. Okay, and I'm seeing none. We are now at item 4.1, minutes from our regular meetings throughout October and our special meeting on October 14th. One thing that I would like to ask is that unless we are ready to approve these and accept these for posterity, that, or let me say that differently, that if we really are ready to approve these and accept these as posted or as needed amendment, that we do so. But if we're not ready because you haven't reviewed, please indicate that. I want to point out that the, perhaps October 6th and the October 13th meeting, well, the October 13th meeting is probably the most straightforward because those were just presentations for us. But the October 6th meeting was the meeting where we discussed the constitutional changes and the amendments put forward. The October 20th meeting was our last meeting where we did ranking. And we had and I think that's all we did. And then the October 14th meeting was our very special meeting about the Senate resolution around spring 2022 scheduling. So it's my opinion that those especially are incredibly important to get right. And so if we need more time to look at them and offer amendments, please indicate as much. The other thing I'd like to share, and I've shared this previously, but I mentioned it and I don't think it really went anywhere. I'd also like to offer the opportunity to those senators that have abstained or voted no on motions that have passed to submit what I called previously as a minority report, meaning oftentimes in our minutes, the dominant discussion gets explained very well, and then the dissenting opinions not as much or aren't as explored as thoroughly as they could be. And so having those senators that dissented from the vote provide a follow-up report to submit to the Senate that would live next to the minutes, I think would be really healthy and transparent and helpful as we continue on in our work as a Senate throughout the years. I can think of many instances where there's been a vote and then senators or people in leadership or just faculty in general go back to look at the minutes, and all that's there is who voted what, yes, no, or abstention, and then a little bit of a blurb of what the motion was and not much else. So I think it would be really good. You know, I'm thinking of things like 2 summer sessions. So if you'd like to submit a minority report, you can submit it by next meeting. Jenny?
So let's say, like, you know, there were 12 faculty who voted yes on something, 3 who voted no. Do those 3 no votes need to work together on that, or can just any one of those no's do whatever they'd like for a minority report?
Yeah.
Okay.
They might have 3 very different reasons for voting no or abstaining. But it should be written from the point of view of I voted, or, you know, I representing my division, I voted this way because XYZ. Yep. And this is just an optional thing. I just want to invite people into this practice. I think it would be really good for us to do that. Okay, anyways, meeting minutes from 3 regular meetings and the special meeting. Are we ready to accept these as posted and distributed, amend as needed, what have you? Trisha?
I did have a minor change to the one on the 14th, I believe it was, when it said that I said they're hybrid classes happening at SCL. It's high flex. I know there's a little bit of a difference there. So just for the accuracy.
Great. Christina, you got that one?
And I technically didn't abstain. I think I got kicked out on the internet or something, but that's I don't care if it says abstain, that's fine.
Well, that does matter. Discussion.
Absent, I guess.
We'll need to look into that one. So maybe we'll kick this one out for now. Okay, cool. Thanks, Trisha. So we will pull 1014. Any other comments, questions, or concerns about the other regular meeting minutes? Okay, so no other amendments are being voiced. So unless I hear otherwise, we will accept the meeting minutes from the regular meetings on October 6th, October 13th, and October 20th. Okay, wellness. Thanks. Okay, short president's report from me this week. It's here. You can take a look. There's not much there, but there are some updates that I won't voice right now. The other thing I want to say is that I am continuing to meet with representatives from the State Academic Senate on our coaching plan. And I don't have much to say other than that I'm meeting with one on Monday, and I met with Julie Bruno last week. And I just basically have a lot of homework to do, which includes looking at other colleges' subcommittee structures and things like that. I'm hoping our coach, Jeffrey Dyer from Taft College, will be joining our plenary on our Constitution, just to be there and learn from us and hear from us, so that as we continue our bylaws discussion and subcommittee structure, he can just get a feel for our faculty. I don't know that he will be here yet. I'm just saying that's what I would like to happen, and that he and I have discussed that. Okay, Senate liaisons. I know you all submitted a written report. Does anybody want to provide a short oral report today? Jenny?
So I put both of these in my report, but I wanted to draw attention to two matters from COI, and there have been emails about them this week. One is about the fact that Canvas is going to be moving away from classic quizzes and to new quizzes. And that's going to happen mostly by July, definitely by the end of December. And so the FRC sent out an email about training on this. It's going to be important to most faculty, most departments, and their email is pretty detailed about who they think should get the training first and when. So I want to make sure that gets back to faculty because they're starting training this semester, especially for folks adopting new textbooks in spring. And then on that note, another COI issue, and there was an email from the bookstore about this since textbook orders are coming out. There's something called an inclusive access, which gives students digital access to the books and materials for their courses starting on day one. And so as people are doing their textbook orders, this might be a way that they want to go. So you can see the bookstore email this week, but also in my report, there are 3 documents linked. One is a what is inclusive access document. One is a link to some videos and contacts, and another is what it would look like on the student end.
Cool. Thanks for that, Jenny. Other liaisons, Tara, Dee Dee, Ruth, Ellen? No? Okay. That concludes item 5.2, Senate liaison reports. Item 5. Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor Jen?
Sorry about that. I was a little late because I couldn't find the hand. Am I able to ask Jenny a clarifying question regarding that?
Sure.
What she just mentioned? Okay, so for the inclusive, was it discussed how that information was being given to students? The reason I'm asking is because in academic counseling, we have seen several students who are getting holds on their account that are not allowing their registration holds, so they can't register for classes. So to me, it sounds like it's a huge barrier that students don't know what inclusive access is. So I'm just curious if that was discussed, and if it was or wasn't, if it will, or I guess I just wanted to know more from the student's perspective, because we were getting students who are like, I have this hold on my account, I don't know why, we don't know what it is, and then we're piecing together as counselors that it could be this.
As far as I know, students are supposed to get a notification that their class is using inclusive access. And I don't know when that notification comes out, but the instructor is also supposed to make it really clear, and the student's supposed to get like an electronic document about it.
Could the student get, has it been discussed, but potentially that the student could opt into it rather than opting out of it? Because if
I think sorry.
It's okay.
I think it is all or nothing.
Sorry.
It's like they can't make the choice, like once the class goes inclusive access, students can't opt out and say, well, I want this kind of copy, I don't want that copy. It's everyone's in. And I do also believe that the charge for the books and materials doesn't happen until the 4th week or so of the semester. And so it could be like that the student's not expecting a charge to come that late in the semester. And that could be a point of confusion too.
Just clarifying something you said, Jenny. So a student signs up for a class that is inclusive access. They have the materials from day one. It's automatic, but they do have the choice to opt out. Meaning they can go get their textbook yes.
They do, or they do not?
They have the choice Okay, well, you're saying no. I won't, okay, I'll stop, but I
There's an
understand.
opt-out deadline.
Right.
Yes, so, Rand, there is an opt-out deadline, but I guess for me, from the student perspective, I'm concerned that students are not aware of this, and if the fee is coming later and they're not aware of it, or, I think just the communication needs to be there, or it needs to be a fee that's paid for upon registration, because now a lot of our students have holds on their account, and now they're scrambling because they have priority registration, trying to figure out how to even pay for it for some of these students. But even what it is, because it's not it's only listed as a bookstore hold, and they're confused on it. So anyways, I guess one of the questions is there a way for a student to, I think we just needs to be maybe discussed more from the student perspective, so that it's equitable and just it works for the professors and for the students.
You're bringing up some really good points, Jennifer. I would welcome this to come back maybe as a discussion topic to the Senate. I think we're, going into that territory now. And I think that this is a very worthy conversation. There's also been questions raised around Senate discussing instructors collecting royalties. It's adjacent to, not necessarily part of this inclusive access conversation. So I do think it's worth exploring this as a Senate.
I think it would be very good too. Thank you.
Yeah, I also think that there's some academic freedom arguments for choosing your own class content and that kind of thing, but maybe that's something that we need to flesh out as a Senate. Jenny?
Okay, so in the document I linked, it says it's all or nothing. The entire class must be involved, meaning the professor is going to sign the whole class up. It's not a secondary ebook option to a physical book, and it's not a free trial. They don't pay up front. They have access to the entire book for the whole semester. Everyone begins opted in as soon as they enroll in the class, and they have until the add or drop date to decide whether to continue using it. So if a student does not wish to continue using it, they have to opt out by the deadline. And then they would have to find the material on their own. They'll receive an invoice from the bookstore on or around 4th week of instruction. And then they have 30 days to pay for the materials after that invoice.
Right.
Yes, sorry about the opt-out option.
That's okay.
I assumed you were stuck in it. I didn't see it I thought you had till the drop deadline to drop the class and the material, not just the material, but you can opt out at that point, but you start out opted in, and then you get invoiced week 4.
Right. So I'm seeing hands go up. There's obviously a lot of concern around this item. I just want to point out that Counselor Jen had a clarifying question, and I think I heard and understand her point, which was regardless of what is happening within the class, once the student is in the class, there's confusion around what is happening for the student when they sign up for a class. So I think that was the point. Well taken. We clarified that you can opt out. Anna and Robbie, do you have very quick clarifying questions? I really want to move on from this because it's not an agendized item.
Yeah, I just wanted to request that it be agendized officially, publicly in the meeting, because I'm confused.
That was my request too.
So I'm sorry, explain it to me. You want, in a future meeting, you want to discuss inclusive access and what it means, or in a future meeting, what? Or in this meeting?
I mean, I don't think we can do it in this meeting, right? So in a future meeting, I would like to discuss what inclusive access is and to make sure that we are also considering the impacts on students as we're rolling out new technology and new offerings.
Got it.
And
Jenny?
the ethics of making students opt out of paying for something, like the default state being that they have to pay for it.
Yes.
Yes, we will agendize this. We'll get to these points. Jenny? Anything else? Your hand is still up. Okay, all right, so agendize, inclusive access. So, okay, I will bring that to Senate steering. I will ask Senate steering whether or not we want to bring somebody like in the bookstore in like Paul Miller, or whether we just want to have our own discussion and get some background information so that we're all aware of that. Sound good? Okay, cool. So I think we're done with Senate liaison reports. Okay. Our EVP, Dr. Kathy Scott, is not with us today. She's away at a conference in San Diego, which brings me to item 5.4. Request to agendize items at future meetings. So there is one request for us to consider. It came in via email. And it is kind of lengthy. So if you haven't read it, please take a couple seconds to do a cursory review now. The gist of it is that a person went to an FA workshop on retirement, and there is some, let's say, questionable bills in the state Congress. And this person was wondering if the academic senate would be willing to offer a resolution in support of it, perhaps direct the Board of Trustees to move in that direction as well, and just get help spreading the word around this. I want to remind everyone that while the Senate is the professional voice of the faculty around items 10+1, curriculum and likewise, that it is usually the faculty association, the union, that picks up retirement and working condition items. That being said, if the faculty senate feel as though this is something that we want to work on and endorse, now is your opportunity to say so, and then we can agendize it at a future meeting. So is there a motion or a request to agendize this? I'm seeing none. Would anybody like to offer a place where this could go, or for me to share out for this faculty member, or? Okay. Oh, Ellen?
I would just agree with what you said about this is an issue under the purview of the FA.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks for that. So other than Ellen's statement agreeing with mine, I'm hearing no other discussion. And so this item will not be agendized. Okay. All right, which brings me to our consent agenda. So how our consent agenda works is as follows. The consent agenda is approved as a whole, meaning if there's one item on the consent agenda that we need to discuss in depth and consider and have a vote on its own, it needs to be pulled from the consent agenda and placed at the bottom of today's agenda. Any of the senators have the right to do that, and you don't need to justify it. You just say, I want to pull item blah, blah, blah from the consent agenda, okay, for further discussion, and we will do that. So before we consider that, please let me share the items. I'm going to announce at the end the 2021-22 Exemplary Program Award nominee from Santa Barbara City College to the State Academic Senate. Another consent agenda item is the faculty appointment to the EEOAC committee. Item 6.4 is an item that is coming from a subcommittee of the Academic Senate, which is the Academic Policies Committee. If you remember previously, a request to agendize a conflict of interest policy came through our new little agendizing mechanism. And so the Academic Senate made a motion to, yes, work on that, and it got delegated to the AP committee, APC. So they worked on it, they're bringing it forward, it's a BP. Senate steering put it on the consent agenda for the following reasons. AP committee worked it out. They did the deep dive, they did all the work, they have revisions and updates and new sections. It's there for everybody's review. Comes to Senate, Senate can discuss it if we want. I thought because the subcommittee did so much work in it that we can put it on our consent agenda, because if and when it gets approved, it goes from Senate to BPAP. BPAP has 3 faculty appointments, myself, Ana Garcia, and Dan Spitz, the business instructor. All 3 of us can receive faculty feedback to update at BPAP. After BPAP reviews it, it will go back out to groups for feedback. So it's going to come back to the Academic Senate pretty quickly after BPAP reviews it for feedback at that time. So unless anybody feels very compelled to discuss it now, there will be a discussion point later. However, if you feel it is important to discuss something in it now, let's do that. I'm not saying this to like stifle anyone's discussion around this. I'm just saying that there will be different points for feedback. So that's item 6.4. And then item 6.5 is our continuation of remote meetings for the Academic Senate. You remember the governor passed updated resolution so that we can all continue in remote, and we have to do this once every 30 days to continue our remote meeting. Okay, so which brings me back to our happier item, which is the Exemplary Program Award announcement. It gives me great pleasure to announce that the Sabbatical and Faculty Recognition Committee has nominated Sbcc Music as the Exemplary Program Awardee nominee this year. So assuming that we accept that nomination as part of our consent agenda, we can celebrate because several of them are here with us today. So I would love to entertain either a motion to accept the consent agenda as posted, a request to remove something. Somebody tell me what to do. Robin.
Move to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, Robin. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Trisha.
Trisha seconds. We will go through our roll call voting. You may vote yes, no, or you may abstain. Ben.
Yes.
Counselor Jen.
Yes.
Ellen Carey.
Yes.
Jenny.
Yes.
Joy Coons.
Yes.
Dee Dee. I'm not sure I saw Dee Dee today. Is she here? I'm not seeing Dee Dee. Okay. Elizabeth.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Thank you, Kathy. Robin.
Yes, and yay music.
Jess.
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
Tara,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Trisha,
Yes.
and Anna.
Yes.
So for those present, it was a unanimous approval of the motion to accept the consent agenda. Can everybody unmute themselves and say yay music? Yay music!
Congratulations. Well deserved, well deserved.
Congratulations.
Oh, music. Awesome.
And I think at least Nathan and Jim are with us today, and then also James Watson. Do any of you want to unmute yourself, and you're welcome to speak a little bit about your program?
Thank you. I'd like to start just by saying thanks to Darren and the committee and to Lindsay Moss for helping us with the lottery funding to make this possible. And Elizabeth Imhoff, who's been just a tremendously supportive dean to our department. And I will turn it over to the two faculty members that actually made this happen, which are Jim Mui and James Watson.
Thank you, everybody. I want to keep your meeting short. It's been a pleasure, and it's been amazing to try to make live music happen over the internet, and it worked, which is unbelievable.
James?
I don't have a whole lot to add. We had there's a lot of work, a lot of delving into the deep, dark recesses of the internet and reprogramming things, but we made it happen, and we couldn't have done it without the students who were willing to jump in and dive in and figure out how to make their systems work with what we were trying to do. And it wasn't easy, but we made it happen, and we had some great moments. Like the highlight for me was a live concert with Sweden, alternating tunes back and forth across the ocean, just in real time. And we were responding to each other. I mean, that didn't happen pre-pandemic. It's never happened before. It probably won't happen again unless something great happens. But yeah, we took a bad situation and made some magic out of it, I guess.
Sure did, and thanks for that. And we're all really proud, and I am happy to write my letter of support and get it finalized at the state level for you all. Russell?
Yeah, so, congratulations to music. I have a kid at La Colina Junior High, and it seems like you guys shared your technology and what you did so they could continue. So it wasn't just Santa Barbara City College centric, but community centric. So great job on that, guys. It made such a difference to those junior hires.
You're welcome. And that was James Watson getting them the proper hardware, as well as our facilities and resources at City College. It was a really neat a combination of efforts.
Yeah. And don't forget that Stephen Hughes, who's the director at La Colina, is also on the faculty at Santa Barbara City College's music department. And Jim Mui went out to Santa Barbara High and helped them out with a lot of their stuff, and UCSB. So it's been a team effort all over the place.
Well, it sounds like it's very well deserved. Thanks so much for being with us and celebrating with us, guys. Have a good one. Feel free to stick around too, or go celebrate. All right, so now we'll move on in our agenda information items. Item 7.1, please pay particular attention to put this in front of your faculty. Not only as an opportunity to engage in Title V amendments and that process, but also because it seems as though some changes, Title V changes, are coming to our distance education. And so we're going to want to have faculty know about this because it may affect how they are operating within their classes in very real time. So please make sure you let your faculty know in your divisions that this information is here. They should review it carefully. If they have comments that they want to give at the state level, that there's a mechanism to do so, and that they should be aware of what changes are happening at this level. Item 7.2. And 7.3 are separate items, although easily confused. So item 7.2, you can think of as the near future committee, like what's happening soon in spring, summer, and fall of 2022. Dr. Kindred Murillo has a call out for the return to campus task force. And the Academic Senate gets one appointee to this committee. The purpose of this task force is to develop the principles by which to guide the return to campus task force, review local, state, county, national data, recommend metrics that signal phases of return to the campus, provide recommendations on COVID and the return procedures and like that, and then also return to campus plans, look at other colleges and what they are doing. She especially wants BIPOC community appointees, inclusion of healthcare professionals so that they have that technical expertise. And then also the committee needs to stay grounded in the data as she shares. So if you are interested in this committee, or if a faculty member that you represent is interested in this committee, you can either email me on their behalf or they can email me directly. I need the names so that this group can get going by this Friday. Of course, a lot of this work has already started, right? A lot of people have already returned to campus, but they need to pick up and keep going and plan for spring and summer and fall. So that's the return to campus task force. And then we have the Sbcc Future of Work task force. So for this committee, the Academic Senate gets two appointees. This is going to be more long-term. So thinking, you know, a year from now and beyond, what will Sbcc look like in the next 5 years and in the decade? Similar to the other task force, she wants people from traditionally marginalized communities from campus, providing the representation. She wants people that are well-versed on current best practices for working conditions. Those, you know, people that are willing to think about that, and then also thinking about our own educational master plan, trends in higher enrollment, trends in pedagogy, and everything around that. So if you know that you yourself are interested or know somebody that might be interested in this, please have them email me directly by this Friday would be ideal so that this task force can get started. The Hayward Award call is now open. The information is on our agenda, and also Darren Gerard emailed it out to faculty. So if you know someone that you would like to nominate for the Hayward Award, please see the information there. This is just literally an information item. This information has been emailed out to faculty, and it's just here to remind everybody that we're doing this. We are currently in the review period of the proposed constitutional changes, so faculty should be looking at them and thinking about them. We have a planned plenary for November 12th. The calendar invites went out already, and then the voting period will be after that. So please remember that this is happening. Don't let this sneak by you or faculty, so that everybody feels included in this and can provide feedback and also participate in voting for those that are eligible to vote. Item 7.6, this was an information item previously. I'm bringing it back as a reminder to senators that you have homework, which is to read this report carefully. I would like Senate to use this report as a, what's the word? A waypoint. And learn from what is in this report and perhaps fold in some of the practices that are discussed. I'd love to create a subcommittee of the Academic Senate around this report in particular, so that we can pull out what we might want to do as a Senate and get some organization around that. And the sooner, the better. So if you haven't done so already, I'm asking you again to review it so that perhaps in our November meetings or our December meetings, we can have some of these items agendized, which brings us finally to item 7.7, which is a presentation. I believe Dr. Z. Reese is with us today, and he will be sharing with us the very important risk survey results for our consideration. Z?
Thank you, Ray. How much time would you like me to spend with this?
Can you do under 10 minutes so that any follow-up questions we have can kind of conclude by 10 minutes? Does that work?
I will work for that,
Cool.
or
Awesome.
work towards that.
And do you need screen sharing privileges?
Yes, please.
Let's see. Christina, can you make him a co-host or?
I'm on it.
Okay, awesome. So once you're a co-host, I think you'll be able to screen share.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for having me today. So while we're getting that going, here we go. So let me get this set up here. So what we'll be doing today is spending some time looking through the risk survey. If we're looking at the agenda item down here, you'll see that we've got several attachments that go along with it. This first one is going to be the kind of short presentation that I'll walk us all through today. Mostly that presentation is to get you comfortable with what's being presented in this report. And then this last one is some kind of custom questions that we ask. And they're of interest for sure. They give us a little bit of a deeper understanding of some of our demographics and basic needs, as well as kind of students working and things of that nature. So some good stuff in those custom questions as well. It won't be the primary focus of what we're doing today. So let me hop straight into the slides here on this one. So spring 2021 is when we went ahead and administered this survey. Go through some logistics real quick. This survey is a student experience survey. There's a number of these circulating through our system. The one that we're probably most familiar is the Sense and Sbcc surveys. You all may have had these come into your class. Essentially, they're in-class surveys that do a random stratified kind of structure of different classes, come into the class, take about 45 minutes of the class, and all the students participate in them there. So you may see those. We did both the Sense and Sbcc about 2 years ago. So this one came out, it was a little bit of a more modern survey tool in that it really kind of helped use a lot of the technology things that have developed around surveys. So that was kind of one advantage of it. Another advantage of this one is it's only $2,500. When we're looking at the Sense and Sbcc package together, you're at about $20,000. So a very big price difference. We administered this survey in kind of end of February going into March of 2021. So this was all COVID all the way. This went out to all of our credit students. It was an online survey and it's mobile friendly. So it's pretty easy to go through and do this on your phone if you would like to. Took students about 9 minutes to do this. So kind of a win there as well. Not too heavy of a cost on students, something we're always trying to keep an eye on because we really do like to survey our students. So when we do that, we want to try to do that as effectively and efficiently as possible. In total, we collected about 18,000 responses. This is about 600 more than you get with the Sense or the Sbcc report. So that's nice. It gives us a little bit more capacity to disaggregate this information and have a number of students in there where we have like not a whole lot of uncertainty, and we kind of minimize how much uncertainty we have about how their experience represents similar students to that. So this survey walks through like 5 main challenge areas. And that's the main thing this is set up on, is trying to say, okay, as a student, did you have a challenge in one of these areas? If so, we're going to ask some more questions. So that's kind of the computer adaptive component of this, is while it goes through 80 questions, if a student doesn't have any challenges in that area, they're not going to have to go through those additional 5 or so questions. So that's how it allows students to kind of navigate through this somewhat efficiently with, you know, total 9 minutes of cost there on them. Looking at the student office interactions, this is an additional part of the survey that really says, okay, what are 5 offices that students interact with that you would like to ask additional questions of? And they ask 3 additional questions that are pretty good general questions if you're just trying to get at customer satisfaction. So we'll look at a few of those as well. Looking at how the survey is set up, so talking to that kind of adaptive bit, when they first log in and they kind of open up the survey link, it brings them to a question like this. And it says, let's start with the first area where you may have had some challenges this semester. Think about your success in courses. Have you had any challenges in the following areas? So this is exactly what it would look like. As you can see, it would fit on your phone pretty easily, and you know, you click the which ones. So in this particular example, I said, okay, I do have difficulties in the online classes, and then I didn't say I had any difficulties in the other ones. So after that, it's then going to take me to a little bit more detail. What were those challenges you had in your online classes? And then the student can select all of the ones that apply. And that is the basis of this survey. So we'll go through those kind of 5 main challenge areas, ask them if they had challenges. If they had challenges, we'll ask them for a little bit more detail on it. So now we're going to be moving into the results. This is a screenshot out of a table from one of those PDFs, the second PDF on the agenda items. And this is just to be the summary of those 5 main challenge areas. Real quick to touch on this benchmark column here. The risk survey is relatively new, and it's kind of one of the disadvantages of using this compared to the Sense and SESI is that it has a rather small benchmark population of colleges. When you're doing the Sense survey, you're working with about 280 community colleges. When we did it specifically, there was 20 California community colleges in that sample that were doing guided pathways. So it was a really nice benchmark in that way. In this particular one, there's only about 42 other community colleges that are included in this benchmark. And as far as I know, at least one of them is another California community college, but I don't have much information beyond that about how many of these were from California versus elsewhere in the nation. So that's the benchmark thing. So, we're going to treat that softly. It's information, but, we're not going to make or break anything on this kind of benchmark comparison here. What we do want to look in is focus on here. And what the 69% is saying that 69% of the 1,800 some change students reported having one sort of challenge or another in course success. And that's this 1,283 students. So that's, so they had kind of challenges in course success. The other one that we had a lot of challenges in was within work and personal issues. So these are the 2 that I'm going to kind of walk through parts of the report on just to get us comfortable with that report. And then I'll leave it to you all to kind of walk through the rest of this report and kind of think through that. And we can always come back and discuss those in more depth if you would like. So moving into the kind of course success, this is the top of that chart. This is a full page chart. So, there's a ... here that goes into the other challenges. But just for an example, major challenges within course success. Here is that 69% of our students that reported having some challenge with course success. And of those, so of the 18,000, 57% said that they had a challenge or difficulty with their online courses. And then it goes through and kind of details where they had those challenges. So the leading challenge was difficulty learning the material on my own, and then followed by lack of interaction with other students and lack of interaction with faculty. So, and then it just kind of proceeds through. We did, when we move into the Tableau report that lets you disaggregate this information by a variety of characteristics, there's going to be one thing to note there on why those numbers are going to look a little bit different than these numbers, but we'll get to that when we get there. So this is going to be looking at our course success, or the challenges to course success. And now we're going to move over to the Tableau dashboard. Oh, it doesn't look like this link is live. So hopefully you all have access to Tableau. If you do not, just shoot me an email and I'll get you set up with that. When you get into Tableau, I recommend the easiest way to find this. Up in the top right corner, there's a little search menu, type in RISC, and that will pop it up right there. Once you get in there, you're going to drop into something that looks a lot like this. I'm going to go ahead and jump straight to the faculty and online question. The rest of those were just other parts of the survey. So depending on where you're at in the campus, one or the other of these may be of more interest to you. So currently we're going to do this with no disaggregation at all, but here you do have the option to disaggregate by a number of different student characteristics. I'm going to skip on down to the online classes one. So this is looking at, have you had any challenges with online classes? 57% said they did, 43% said they did not. So of this 57%, and it's kind of useful to hover over this because you get this little tooltip that gives you a little bit more details about who's in your denominator and who's in your numerator. This is going to be important to keep an eye on because when we were building this dashboard, we built our denominator out of this 1,048 students, whereas when you're in the report, the denominator is always going to be that 1,849. So a little bit of a hurdle there. Apologies on that one, but that's how we got it set up. So then when we're looking out of these 1,048 students, what issues did you have with your online class? And they can select any that apply to them. The most prominent one, and this is where you're going to see that kind of difference in the percentage number than what we saw on the report, is difficulty learning the material on my own with 75%, lack of interactions with other students, 64, etc. So that's going to just get you basically set up. Now I'm going to go up here and disaggregate it. I'm going to go ahead and go straight to ethnicity for our disaggregation, and then we'll go back and look through the same question, now disaggregated. This is an important point where you want to keep an eye on how many students are here. If there is only a few students in there, you just want to keep in mind that we have a higher level of uncertainty about how their report and their experience is going to generalize to similar students. So just kind of keep that in mind. We're not discounting, we're not saying that wasn't their experience, but we're saying we've got a higher level of uncertainty when we're thinking about, okay, how does their experience relate to similar students in the future? And when you're looking through this, the main thing I'm looking for is big differences. Anything, and they're color coded. So the darker blue gets closer to 100%, lighter blue, greenish color gets to a little bit lower. And you'll see 1 out of 1 students there. So that's their experience, may or may not generalize to other similar students. So then we're kind of looking through, okay, did any of these groups have more challenges with online classes? Just scanning down here, a few pop out, 2 or more races, unknown, Hispanic, and black or African American, black and or African American. So those kind of jump out as like, okay, these are areas where we probably want to look a little bit more closely because it seemed like students identifying with these characteristics reported having a higher rate of challenges with their online classes. So from there, we're going to move down here to the disaggregation. Same kind of questions. You got those same options along the top, difficulty learning my material on my own, etc. And we're just going to be kind of keeping an eye, where do we see higher ones? And looking through it, you're like, okay, looking through this first one, most people reported pretty high. You see the 7 out of the 8 Filipino students reported this one really high, 2 or more races, and so on. Okay, keeping an eye on the time, I'm going to hop out of this report now. Hopefully my kind of intention was just to get you comfortable with the way we've set up this dashboard so you're comfortable to kind of explore it on your own. Keeping an eye on time, I'm not going to walk through the work challenges. Again, this was kind of just to get you comfortable looking through those reports. It is kind of something that kind of validates a lot of what we already knew, that our students do have a lot of challenges relating to work and personal issues, and that those tend to also be within work hours, not leaving enough time to study, as well as kind of family, difficulty balancing demands of family and college. So kind of giving us a, some numbers to put to what we experience as we interact with our students each day. We're going to spend very little time on this. So when we get into the student office interactions, this is asking, okay, for those, and we had the option to put in whatever offices we wanted. We ended up going with these 5 offices for no particular reason, other than I thought, okay, students are probably interacting with these offices. We'd like to get some information. And this is where I'm going to stop us on this one. It asks these 3 questions as a general customer satisfaction. How available was whatever the department name was, how concerned were they, and how effective were they? So it's a nice kind of general customer satisfaction that should fit onto most offices. And then here are some links to the full reports. Those look like those links are working. And that is all I've got. So I'd like to open it up to any questions or discussion.
You showed us, you showed us a lot of the tools, Z. If you had to give a 2-minute elevator summary of the data, which I know is hard, but like, what is your 2-minute elevator summary of the data?
That is a great question. I wish I had a better response to this. I am in the unfortunate position of passing a lot of data along and not often having time to digest it much. So I've looked through the reports a little bit, but I haven't gotten it enough to, I could give you a good 2-minute summary of what were the main takeaways from it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Any other questions, comments for Z on his presentation? and the information provided.
Cool. Well, you guys are all sounding very quiet, which is either a good thing that you found a lot of information in there to be thinking about, or an also good thing that you're like, okay, there's a lot I got to digest there before we get into it. So if you all ever would like to come back and have me discuss it more with you all, I'd love to do that. Or if you have any questions offline and just want to hit me up, or one in my office, we'd love to kind of speak with you more about it. We really are hoping that this survey is good. I mean, it's logistically, it makes a lot of sense. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't give us any information that helps us improve our students' experience, we're going to keep on looking. So a lot of what we're doing here is, as you look through these, do they give you good information? Does it help you understand where students are having challenges in the classes? And does it help us as an institution understand where our students are having challenges, so we can kind of plan accordingly and try to help improve those experiences? So at the end of the day, that's kind of the feedback I'm looking for you all is, do you find this useful? I know it doesn't take 45 minutes out of your class, so that's a bonus, but does the information that's presented in there seem useful to kind of what's going on in your classes and thinking about your students?
Yep, right on, Z. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, so looking back at our agenda, we are now into our action item agenda. So I'll call for public comments at this time before we discuss item 8.1, our fall plenary planning discussion. If you'd like to give public comment, please indicate now by raising your virtual hand. Okay, I'm seeing none. So let us discuss. So I'm hoping items 8.1 and 8.2 go a little quickly. I'll just offer that at the beginning. I hope that we can just kind of figure this out and not discuss too much around it. Let me set it up for you so that we can at least discuss around item 8.1 to start. So the fall plenary is coming up November 4th through the 6th. It is being offered in person and virtually. And the in-person conference is down in Long Beach, and then the online portion is through an app called Pathable. Basically, last year especially, I made a big push for all senators to go to our plenaries, and a critical mass did, which was, I think, really helpful and effective in bringing best practices from around the state back to Santa Barbara City College. I really felt as though it allowed us to get out of our bubble. And it also allowed for that idea of gatekeeping to kind of end, where just one or two people go and then they experience the plenary and then come back and share out. So we have some decisions to make about fall plenary planning for us as a Senate. Just to give you all some numbers, we have approximately $10,000 total for Senate, for senators or faculty to be, let's use the phrase, sponsored by the academic senate to engage in either the fall plenary, the spring plenary, or even the leadership conference that is a week long that's typically held in June. So we had a number of senators and faculty members attend that as well. So $10,000 does not go very far for very many of these things, especially when it's in person. The fact that things have been offered virtually for the past year or so has afforded many more of us to engage in it because it's a lot cheaper. So I want us to have an open discussion about what we want about, quote, sending people to plenary. And I mean, not just for the fall, but also the spring, and then also the leadership conference in the summer. Just to give you a couple more numbers, to attend in person, it costs for registration $580. The virtual registration is $325 for the 3-day plenary, or we can have people register just for a single day. And that is just $75 for the virtual single day registration. To give you some more numbers, to go to Long Beach and to stay in the sponsored hotel where plenary is taking place costs approximately $169 per night. That's at the group rate plus taxes and fees, so around $200 a night. Typically, people that go to the plenary in person are going for at least 3 nights. And so the hotel costs alone are around $600. And then if they drive themselves, there's also a mileage fee that can be picked up. There's also the train. I took the train down one year. And it's just my opinion, nobody should be flying to Long Beach. But that's Long Beach. In the spring, it's typically held in the Bay Area, which means that the travel expenses is a lot more. You, of course, could drive to the Bay Area, but oftentimes in the past, people have flown. And then also the week-long leadership conference in the summer is even virtually, it's about $500 to $800 depending. Now that information isn't available yet, so I'm just basing it on what was available last year. But also the leadership conference in particular, I would argue is a really good place to physically send people, because the leadership conference is all about creating community amongst other emerging leaders and really engaging in leadership workshops and practices. So that's all I have to say about this. What I'm looking for from you all around this conversation is some guidance. Who wants to go to plenary this fall? Who may want to go in the spring? Who would like to go virtually this fall, especially who has looked at the program and thinks that there's items that they want to attend? Item 8.2 is we also need to decide on a delegate who will be voting on all of the resolutions that we will talk about in item 8.2, so we can do that separately. And yeah, I'll just open it up. I want to know who wants to go, and I want to do some mathematics in my head to see if we can sponsor them, and then also what that might mean for spring and summer. Let me ask you all a direct question. I see Trisha's hand. Maybe a direct question I have for you is, who wants to attend fall plenary, either in person or virtually? Let me know so that we can discuss around that. Okay, Trisha?
Yeah, that's what I would raise my hand to, but I might only be able to go for 2 days. And I would like to do virtual, not in
You
person.
want to do virtual for 2 days. Okay, awesome. You got it. Okay, so Trisha wants to attend the fall virtually. Okay, you got it, Trisha. That's an easy one. Tara.
Yeah, I also would like to attend the fall virtually. And I'll just lend some support to maybe saving some of our dollars for sending folks to the leadership conference. I think, while we still have the option of doing some of this virtually, our money just goes a little bit further. I know nothing really fully replaces that in-person experience. But if we have limited funds, I would recommend we save it for the leadership one. That one's really about networking and maybe just a little bit more important to do in person.
Thanks for that, Tara. Anna?
Yeah, I just wanted to second what Tara said. I don't have capacity to go this fall, but I would be interested possibly in the spring. And I definitely think we should spread out our money as much as possible so that as many people can attend the 3 events as folks are interested versus spending all of our money on 1 or 2 people attending one of the options.
Yeah, I agree. And then of course, there's always the possibility of asking, whether it's the foundation or the EVP or the superintendent for support for something like the leadership conference. Like if we do spend all the money, there are other avenues, but they're not guaranteed, right? So that would be an exercise in patience of finding that when the time comes. So I have Trisha and Tara that are interested for the fall. Anybody else interested in attending the fall plenary? It's totally okay if not. This is like volunteer. Kathy?
Yes, I'd like to do the virtual one. I would like to go in person, but I'm now committed to work a basketball tournament, so I'll do the virtual.
Okay. Bonus.
And if you're short of money, I'll pay for myself.
No, it's okay. Thanks, Kathy, for that. No, I don't think we're short of money. I mean, right now the pot of money is very full. It's just I thought it would be helpful to have a larger Senate conversation around this rather than just me deciding, you know, what money gets spent where and why. So, Jess?
I can't make it, but I was just, since we're talking money, I wanted to confirm, you said a day pass is $75 and it's 3 days? Because it's cheaper to just sign up as day passes. Is that?
And they won't let us do that.
Oh, okay. So it's like a day, not like.
It's a day. Yeah. So there's a day pass for $75 or virtually $325. And so Trisha mentioned she wanted to go for 2 days. And so after 1 day, whether you go 2 days or 3 days, it's still the whole shebang.
Okay, so I would need to maybe look at the schedule more and maybe pick one of those days.
You can go
so 3 or 1.
You can either do 1 day and we'll register you for that, or you can do all 3 days. And I was thinking, I just want to solicit at this point, like who's interested to kind of ballpark it. And then what I'm going to do is email people that are interested in wanting to go individually and saying, here's the program. What am I registering for you? Let me know now. Yeah. Cool. So anyone else, especially our newer senators, new senators, this is a really great opportunity to learn at the state level what goes on. So if you're on the fence and you're like worried that I'm being like stingy with the money, please don't feel that way. Like you should feel supported to go. And if not, there's always the spring plenary as well. So we have Kathy, Trisha, and Tara. Anyone else? I'm seeing none. So with that, I now have what I need. The last thing that we should discuss is perhaps out of these 3, or perhaps we'll find another volunteer, who will be our delegate. So the delegate's role and responsibility is to vote on the Saturday of the fall plenary in the resolutions. So item 8.2 is all of the resolutions that are at the state plenary for revision, discussion, accepting, and all of that. So each local Senate gets 1 vote, and that vote happens via the delegate. Last spring and last fall, I believe, Ruth Morales was our delegate. If you remember, she had a lot of feedback for us about what happened during the resolution voting. She brought back a lot of information from that state level, what's happening, where, when, and why, what resolutions passed and what didn't. And so we are looking for somebody to go in her role. She is not interested in continuing on this fall as the delegate. But she did find it a very fulfilling process and thought that it was extremely important for somebody to be engaged in that. Kathy O'Connor has also been a delegate for us previously. And so because it's not Ruth, I have to fill out a delegate change form that officially recognizes our new delegate. So I need to do that. So we need to decide and nominate a delegate today. If you're on the fence about this or a little bit worried about this, item 8.2 is on the agenda today to give the delegate information of where the Senate or the Greater Santa Barbara City College faculty is at. And I also see Ruth's hand is raised. I'm sure Ruth can provide some support and guidance and ideas on how to do this. So go ahead, Ruth.
Right, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. And the reason I don't want to serve this time around is not because it's uninteresting or it's not important. I think both of those things, that it is interesting and very important for us to be there and provide our vote. It's to allow someone else to serve, because I think it's a very important position and we definitely need to get more of us involved at the state level.
Yeah. So again, the delegate can be out of one of the three that are going, or even if somebody can only serve as a delegate on the Saturday, we have that 1 day ticket option as well, although there is some delegate conversations that happen prior to that Saturday meeting. So before we identify someone, or maybe Tara's nominating herself, I just want to say, does anybody have any questions about this? What is the discussion? Where is this landing? But I'm going to take Tara's raised hand. Tara?
I will just put it out there that I will volunteer to be a delegate, and I will I will accept whatever our Senate body would like to do.
That sounds good. Trisha, Kathy, is that cool with you? We'll put Tara forward. Okay.
That's very cool. Good job, Tara.
Okay, right on. All right, so can we have somebody make a formal motion around Tara being our delegate, and we can have an opportunity for discussion too if I feel like we're going too slow. I just don't want to do too much teeth pulling because we have a willing person here. Robbie?
I move to nominate Tara as our delegate.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second.
So many seconds. We'll give it to Kathy O'Connor. I heard Kathy.
Everyone's thrilled, Tara.
So we have a motion on the table to make Tara Carter our delegate for the fall plenary, and it has been seconded. Is there any more discussion around this item? Would anybody else like to throw their hat in the ring?
I have a little question.
Sure, go ahead, Trisha.
And I'm sorry if you addressed this earlier, but so if there's somebody else who I think might be interested or find this valuable, people that we're trying to get into more involvement, would they be sponsored through you, or would they have to come up with it and attend separately, come up with the registration fee?
You mean for the plenary?
Yes.
I think Senate should sponsor a willing faculty member that is interested in engaging more at the state level. So right now, I gave that offer way back in August at in-service when I was talking about the fall plenary, and actually a credit part-time faculty member, Rosabeth Dorfurther, she will be attending fall plenary as well as senators. So if you know of somebody, now's the time to tell me, and please make sure it's not 20 people.
Yeah, just maybe one or two. I'm going to ask them and then forward it to you if you're interested. Okay,
yep.
Thanks.
And sooner rather than later, Trisha, so that I can register everybody at once, so that everybody gets the links and the share out from the
Yeah,
system.
deadline's kind of like this Friday pretty much, but I'll try to get it by tomorrow if possible.
Yeah, by Friday would be ideal.
Okay,
yeah, cool.
Thanks.
Okay, any more questions or discussion around Tara's nomination for delegate? Okay, so you may vote yes, you may vote no, or you may abstain. Ben?
Yes.
Counselor Jen?
Yes.
Ellen Carey?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Dee Dee,
Yes.
Devana, why do I always do that? Elizabeth,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
Tara,
Yes.
Russell, Trisha,
Yes.
and Anna.
Yes.
You're on the hook, Tara. Or, sorry, I mean, congratulations, Tara. Oh, thanks for that, Tara. Really, really, really appreciate it. Okay, great. I think we'll have a really good cohort going to fall plenary, at least virtually this year. And then that allows us to save a little bit for spring and also the leadership conference. All right, which brings me to item 8.2. I'll call for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment before the Senate discusses the ASCCC fall resolutions? Anyone for public comment? Please raise your virtual hand in the Zoom controls now. Okay, I'm seeing none. So in an effort to provide our newly nominated, I'm being called. Our newly nominated delegate good information so that she can bring the will of our Senate and the will of our college to the resolution discussion and voting. This item is here for your review. There is the plenary page linked as well as the resolutions. So the resolution packet is very large, meaning that the state Senate is going to consider a number of different resolutions. Ruth and Tara can talk about how that works and the voting and all of that. But at this time, I just want to show you where you can find the resolutions. I would really like all senators to take a look at the resolution packet, because there are many resolutions that affect, let's say, operational things at colleges or specific disciplines. Please keep an eye out, especially if there's a resolution around your specific area, so that you can give your feedback and knowledge to Tara so that she can bring that discussion forward. So here's, a list of what's on the consent calendar, and then here's all of the different resolutions that are there. You'll notice that a lot of these are what we're working on at Santa Barbara City College as well, whether it's engaging in guided pathways or resources for critical race theory or zero textbook costs, and the list goes on and on and on. So it's divided up. You can see the different sections, you can see the different headings. So please take some time and look through this and then share out with your faculty so that they can get information back to Tara. So we can certainly discuss this item, or if anybody has questions, we can talk about it now. But ideally, Tara can receive feedback from the faculty body as a whole after they've had some time to digest it. Tara should get her feedback earlier rather than later so that she knows what she should be sharing out and voting on and supporting and requesting adjustments on. So does anybody want to discuss anything around this item 8.2 now? No questions? Okay, then we can move on. And again, please put that in front of your faculty. For those of you that do emails, share it out via email, say, hey, look for stuff that pertains to stuff. If you have the time, you can point them to stuff that you think pertains to the faculty in your division. And then please have them email Tara directly. Sound good? Awesome. We will now move on to item 8.3, we had a previous public comment about this item given by Dr. Melissa Menendez. I will call for additional public comments on this item now. If you would like to give public comment, please raise your hand. Indicate that you would like to. Okay, and I'm seeing none. So I will set up this item for us. So item 8.3 is an item that is on our agenda because the Senate made a motion to agendize it after it came in through the request to agendize items. It specifically came from the chair of our curriculum committee and a member of that committee to have the Senate consider it. And so there is concern that students that are enrolling in a face-to-face class for the spring would then also have the expectation that they could be offered the class materials online. So for instance, if a student has to miss a class or miss several classes, that then they would be then given class content in an online asynchronous way to make up the class content or make up the work. This agenda item came forward prior to the discussions around spring scheduling planning. I do want to share that Cornelia and I met with over 18 different department chairs over the planning for that special meeting that we had in October around the Senate's scheduling considerations, and there were there was a appreciable number of faculty that were continuing to stay online because it was easier. In that, not necessarily the pedagogy was easier, but just that people were worried that they would start face-to-face and then have to pivot to online, and they didn't want the inconsistency with students. They thought if they started online, they could remain online and there would be consistency there. And then also I do know of at least one discipline in the sciences that has been offering face-to-face classes all along. And because of the requests from students when missing class is needed, they actually are now have moved their classes fully online. So the Senate here is discussing this item. Melissa, in her public comments, spoke to some of the unintended consequences of having this conversation. And it's here for Senate review and discussion. If Senate were to kind of coalesce around some kind of syllabus language, I want to remind everybody that that we would just have a recommendation out. It would not mandate anybody to use the language. It would not mandate any action. Having the language or not having the language does not allow or disallow faculty in the face-to-face environment to say or not say, you can, I will provide you or I won't provide you class materials. So with that, we can open this item up for discussion. Tara?
So I want to thank Dr. Menendez for bringing to our attention what some of the unintended interpretations of this item has raised for her. And I certainly share in her sentiments. I also want to bring forward, I think this original item was brought to our attention out of a fear among some faculty who don't have existing online materials to offer their students and are now finally able to teach courses again face-to-face, and they may be teaching a course face-to-face that they never were able to offer online. I know of that happening across departments. So what do we do for a student who says, isn't it easy for you to offer me some online lectures and what have you? That being said, I'm also thinking about how we need to maybe discuss here today as a college, some resources that we can put in the hands of faculty. I know for myself, I am teaching a class face-to-face that I purposely didn't offer for the last year and a half online because I just couldn't think of a way to bring that class online. And I don't have any online materials for that course, but I'm like, okay, how can I be capturing my lectures in the classroom? You know, can I log into Zoom and record my lecture essentially as I'm giving it in real time so that I have a backup for a student who has to miss the class? How easy is it to do this or not? So can we also discuss what kinds of simple solutions or simpler solutions that we can give out as recommendations for faculty? I would appreciate that too.
Or even that could be something that comes out of our faculty resource committee as well.
Yeah.
We could delegate that to them as well. And I want to, yeah, and I just want to share, you know, Tara, like you mentioned, like, oh, I can record my lectures and then share it out that way for this particular course. And I see Jess's hands up, and so Jess and I come from a discipline that if you record a lab, like you can share that out, but that's not the same thing as doing a lab. And then how do you support a student, you know, whether it's anatomy and you're working with a cadaver, or a chemistry lab where like you literally need to take this acid and this base, which are not common household ingredients, and mix them together and do it in a safe way and not blow your kitchen up. Right.
Yeah, don't do that.
So it's like, I do want us as a Senate to be thinking about maybe, like, I think like recording a lecture and sharing that out would be the obvious support thing. You know, I think so many of us are so used to at this point, like recording things and just throwing it on YouTube and sharing it. So like, what are those areas? Like, what are we doing about the many areas of the college where like that isn't the easy fix, right? Yeah. Jess?
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. Not the point that I was gonna make. I just wanted to say that my first impression of the statement is very like, boom, here it is. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that I'm afraid would encourage to kind of ignore signs and symptoms of a cold or COVID, and then just so that they don't miss a day and fall behind, and then they come, and what happens after that, right? Like, out of fear of missing a class because there's no way of making it up, we don't follow proper COVID policy, and then we actually are encouraging, so there's going to be a greater student population on campus in the spring, right? And so I'm just worried about that. And I totally understand, like, it's really complicated, but I think we should try and encourage at least those that have the ability to be supportive in that sense to do it. And that's it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and I wanted to mention one more data point for you all. I met with Tim Fouch on Monday, and he and I are working on some lab guidelines, lab activity class, what have you, guidelines for the spring. So I heard from a number of faculty members, they're like, well, lab is supposed to be a collaborative environment, and in this time of social distancing, it's not really collaborative, and blah, blah, blah. And actually, Tim and I are working on that. And some of the recommendations are, how do you create safe lab partners? How do you have students work together in a close environment? Like if you're gathering around a cadaver or equipment and things like that. So we're working on that, and that will be shared out with all faculty as well, and science and activity-based classes for feedback and further development. Jenny?
Yeah, lots to say. The first thing I'll say personally is, before the pandemic, I only taught face-to-face, and when a student missed a week or two of the semester, they were kind of sunk in my class. I emailed with them. The solution was, come to office hours, I'll try to catch you up. But that was like maybe 2 weeks after. And it was a real hardship. So their attendance basically would cost them their success in the class. Now, given all my online training, and I'm sure this is true for many of my colleagues, we have so many more tools at our disposal that I'm not going to let that happen again. And for me, I would feel irresponsible or like I wasn't doing enough if I weren't putting my training to better use, to use all my online capabilities now to try to give my students the access to the course they need in order to be successful. So a concern of mine, and that I heard echoed from some of my colleagues in English, is that a syllabus statement like this would be restrictive and might cut off the innovation and flexibility that we can give our students so they have access to our course. I know that this would be an optional statement. Faculty could adapt it however they want. But I feel like when something comes from the Senate and we say, hey, here's a syllabus statement, it gives it a sort of legitimacy that I think would create a pretty strong delineation between face-to-face and online. And it just creates a problem with access for students who need access. And Dr. Menendez spoke a lot about the impact on low-income and BIPOC students. And I'm just thinking, Christmas comes, holiday break, low-income students are working in retail, they're living in dense housing, their kids are going back to school or their siblings. And the pandemic's not over in the spring, and students are going to need a lot of accommodations. And so I think that flexibility and innovation we all gained from being online is really going to be needed in the spring. And this statement maybe jeopardizes what we can offer our students for access. I did hear from other colleagues in my division that do support a statement like this. Part of it was working conditions, but it was also out of concern for students who are in a face-to-face class and want a good transition to face-to-face and a good face-to-face experience. But if there start being accommodations or a lack of clarity in the expectations of face-to-face courses, they might not do as well. So I wanted to voice that in my department, people were very split on this kind of statement. I did also receive a couple of responses about maybe a different way forward, not so much a syllabus statement like this, but something that's more a message to faculty to be thinking about how they want to individually craft a statement like this for their courses, depending on their discipline, their pedagogy, and what they think their capabilities are to give students access. And so maybe instead of a syllabus statement, it's more of a messaging to faculty about how to prepare for this. And simultaneously, an emphasis on good messaging for students to just be aware of making the right choice and knowing their class expectations depending on the syllabus. And then on the whole, just a general call from people in my department about support for both students and faculty trying to juggle all of this.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Robin?
Yeah, I think most of what I would have said has already been said better than I would say it. So I want to amplify some of the comments. Tara, first, thank you for pointing out why somebody wouldn't have online materials, because I was just thinking, hey, we've all been online forever. We have all this stuff now. So I do understand that somebody in that situation might not want to feel like they were expected to create materials. I also do really want to emphasize that in our area, we know that we're going to see more absences in spring in a typical face-to-face class than we usually would, because we're now really going to be encouraging people not to come to class sick, which is really pretty much the opposite of what we've always done, sadly. And that if a student is exposed or tested, they will be required to miss quite a lot of class. So I agree with Jess that this statement might seem to be a little too firm on the side of not making materials accessible online to students. And I agree with Jenny that I personally will use every resource that I have to help support students at this point. So in our area, there was a little bit of a mixed response, but there wasn't strong support in putting this out as a syllabus, a general syllabus statement. I think more in favor of what Jenny mentioned, you know, if an instructor really doesn't have any online materials, to make that clear to the students in that particular class on a sort of case-by-case basis. Anyway, but everything else that has been said already. Thanks.
Robbie?
Well, I'm gonna be the jerk who expresses an opposing point of view. I think, of course, any statement like this should be optional, and you know, instructors should do what they think is right for their classroom. And I really appreciate the point that there, excuse me, there are going to be more absences in the spring, and we don't want to encourage people who might have COVID to come to class. However, I think it's really important for students to know what to expect from a class, and so that should be clearly communicated by the instructor. And I think it's important that certain classes maintain certain standards, and those are all going to be different for different courses. But I don't, despite what I just said, I really do understand the idea that there probably will be more absences in the spring. I don't want to facilitate my students not coming to lab, because the things that they learn in lab, they can't learn via any online component. So in my case, at least, I need to support my students in some other way. And so I support the idea of letting faculty know that they have the option of not simultaneously running a hybrid and face-to-face class that is supposed to be face-to-face.
Anna?
Yeah, excuse my voice, everyone. I think the statement as written does come across maybe more intense than I think it needs to. I do agree that there may be some classes where online materials are not available, or the quality of the instruction may not be available, or may not be up to the standard of the in-person offerings. And I do think it's important for people in those situations to provide that information. So I'm torn in how to communicate this to faculty. I also heard Melissa asking a question around what the goal of the statement is, and I guess I wanted to circle back to that and see where folks are at, if it's related to work conditions in some capacity, you know, the student support piece, student learning, and I know all of these things are components of it, but what is our primary goal? And is there one statement that meets the requirements with all of that? I'm also curious, since I'm not a classroom teacher, what the capacity numbers are looking like, the class caps. Wondering if folks will have less students in class, you know, how does that affect capacity to maybe create some alternative assignments or options if students were to miss class? So really, I guess, asking if there's thoughts around how we address this. And obviously each instructor has their own right in their own classroom to do what they want, but I'm just curious if folks have thoughts on what that would look like, knowing it's just the reality we're existing in right now.
As a science lab instructor who taught lab today on campus, I understood this as not necessarily a working conditions statement for faculty, although I think that that is part of the conversation for the reasons I mentioned previously with my conversations with Cornelia, with department chairs. I understood this rather as, or at least the way I approach this and thought about this, or how I would use this messaging in my class, I wouldn't put it in my syllabus, as setting clear, very clear expectations of my students so that they understood that, you know, lecture, I have recordings for you, you know, it'd be ideal for you to come to lecture for XYZ reasons. I'm actually going to be live broadcasting my lectures anyways. So actually I'm doing the room and Zoom kind of function for students in case they don't want to come to lecture in the spring. But even before COVID, there was a clear need my first day of lab to say, we are at capacity in the room for safety. Yes, I have other Chem 101 labs on different days. Unfortunately, because we are at the fire code literal limit, I can't have another student show up and just quote, make up a lab. And I taught and I engaged them in that process. Why can't you come 3 weeks from now and make up a lab? Well, because we have equipment and chemicals and things that are created for that week that then get consumed and used, and hazardous waste, and I have to work with a lab tech on all of that, and it would be disruptive for her to like create extra material for 3 weeks out and all of those things. And I engage with them in that process on the first day of lab, and I explain why there aren't makeup labs and why it's so important, why attendance in lab especially is so important. But then I also say, and there are opportunities for your labs to be dropped, right, in terms of the grades. And then if you have a legitimate excuse, like engage with me about that, what is it? And then I excuse those, so it's not even a dropped grade, right? But I would be doing my chemistry students a disservice if I didn't have that conversation with them, because the fact of the matter is, to be a transferable course, chemistry has a lab component, and we've done the best we can over the past couple of years providing that lab component online, but it is not the same. And we're training pre-med students, we're training nurses, we're training engineers, and it's not just about even mixing chemicals in the chemistry lab. It's about making accurate measurements. It's about safety. It's about working in an environment with others. So there's a lot of like reasons why there are attendance considerations around the laboratory class. And, you know, Tara brought up, like, what about, you know, what if you don't have online material and we all have the resources to create it? if I were to provide somebody my online material from like the summer, which by the way, I do have, it was created. I was offering Chem 101 fully online. If I were to offer that to someone, they would not have the same learning experience as they do in the lab. So I have the material and I could say, yeah, here's the video of the lab, but it's literally me with test tubes going, now check this out. I measured this. Do you see this? Now I'm pouring it together. So, you know, it would be the equivalent of busy work, quite frankly. And I would be more happy. I would be happier to just offer them an excused lab than give them that. And there are, you know, Anna, you know that there, you know, like the dental schools were not accepting the online lab components for transfer. And so there was a number of students that weren't taking chemistry and progressing in their chosen careers because of the modality of the lab. And then there was a waiver, but the waivers were limited, right? So it's like, if we don't offer that, like even our dental schools, right? The transfer institutions are saying, no, we won't accept this. So it's hard in an activity-based class, I think. Which, by the way, Matt Kay teaches, right? So I think that's where it came from for him. And that's where this landed for me, was setting clear expectations early on in the course that attendance is important in lab for all of these really good reasons that I wax on about. Anna?
Yeah, I guess I get all of that, and I don't want it to sound like we're trying to excuse students not participating in class, because I don't think that's the aim here. But I guess I'm wondering like how this differs from every semester then. I don't love the language of this syllabus statement. I think if we want to communicate to our faculty colleagues that we would encourage that you discuss this with your class and make sure that on day one or maybe day 0, they have an understanding around why attendance is especially important and how it could impact, you know, their grades, their learning, all of these things. Like, I definitely support that. But I guess I'm not, now that we're like talking through it, I'm not understanding why this needs to be put out there to folks.
I can only share what I had experienced during the chair conversations, which was this was a huge concern for not a small number of faculty, and that is why they were staying online. And I had concern, I didn't, this came out of left field. I'm just saying, like, concurrent to what was happening, Matt put this forward. One concern I have is, you know, we used a lot of political capital trying to bring faculty back face to face, and a lot of faculty are still remaining online. And like I said, not a small number has reasons for doing that, and this is one of them. And one thing I'm concerned about is if we are effectively marginalizing students from very specific disciplines by keeping them online. So
I'm marginalizing students if they happen to be sick, who happen to be the demographics that are most likely to get sick. That's why I'm feeling very conflicted about this situation, because I don't think this statement resolves the issue either way. We don't teach the classes, or the classes are online. That disrupts the same population. That creating a statement that says, if you aren't in class, then you're likely gonna fail my class. That's, I guess, where I'm coming from. I don't understand how it is more beneficial than the other.
I don't have an answer for that. We can kill this as a Senate. Can do that.
I'm not trying to kill it. I'm just trying to understand. If somebody has the answer, let's talk about it.
Robin has the answer. Robin?
Oh, sure. I have the answer. I actually have questions. My understanding was not that this policy was meant to address the decision to stay online or go face to face. So I'm a little like confused about that correlation. My understanding of why some faculty have expressed a desire to stay online. Well, there are a lot of reasons. I mean, sometimes it's pedagogical, sometimes it's individual health concerns, sometimes it's the concern that we might have to go back online and that would be disruptive. But so I guess I don't see that connection. But what I am a little concerned about is, thanks for explaining the situation with the labs, because we are all in our own disciplines, and it's like that story about all the blind guys who touch an elephant and they touch a different part and that's what they see. We all have our blind spots in that we're seeing our disciplines and we may not be aware of how things affect other disciplines. So I totally understand that a nursing student missing, a lot of their hands-on work cannot make up that work online or watch a lecture. And that to me is like a very discipline specific thing that individual instructors should talk about it within their discipline and decide on the best course of action. I am concerned about institutionalizing a statement and the potential ramifications of that, like Jess mentioned, making the statement that then may be used in ways that do adversely impact students. So like Anna, I'm leaning towards, I'm not wild about having it be a statement that we send out for faculty saying the Senate says this is a statement that you might want to use in your syllabus. I guess I'm feeling like that maybe should be a decision within a discipline based on the needs of their discipline and their student population rather than institutionalized. Anyway, that's how I'm leaning at this point based on the discussion.
Kathy?
Yes, I was involved with Matt and some other faculty when we talked about this statement, and I really don't think that the intent was so much to institutionalize anything. I think it was to help faculty maybe give them a suggestion about a statement they might be able to make, particularly in some of our disciplines where participation is really critical. It's very hard in lab courses and also in PE activity courses or theater arts classes or art lab classes to have students really pass the classes when they're not there. That does not mean that we wouldn't be able to excuse absences and work with students who are ill like we always have. But I think in some cases the students actually expect us to make accommodations for them when they're not in class. And so it's a sort of a fine line where we don't want to not be caring and working with our students, but in some of our disciplines, and we have found this to be true this semester, where students have been able to pass their classes without attending, and now they're in a class that requires participation, and it's a dilemma. So I think we could use it as an example for some disciplines who might want to use a statement like this in their syllabi to help clarify for students what the expectations are.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. We have Elizabeth and then Ruth, and then I would suggest we end the meeting and discussion, and we'll bring it back in November and you can share out the discussion to your faculty. So Elizabeth and then Ruth.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I was talking to some faculty and I feel like part of it too is like currently right now, they're experiencing students that are expecting online content because some of their other instructors have it. So they'll be like, oh, I'm taking this class and I told my instructor I was gonna miss class, and they were able to provide me with online stuff. Why can't you? So I just feel like part of it is students are already kind of expecting it. And I just want to echo, I forget who said it. But I've talked to people too, that if they already have the videos, they'll give them to them. But if I haven't taught the class, I don't have the videos, and then I would have to make them on top of lecturing already. So I don't know, just, that's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you for that. Ruth?
Yeah, I think the idea of, I hope it makes sense. I'm smelling a bunch of, speaking of chemicals, bleach, and my head's hurting. The idea of communicating with faculty, especially those who haven't been in the classroom or haven't heard about, hey, this could be a potential issue, to put greater emphasis on this conversation with their students rather than just, even just put it in the syllabus if we choose to send something or not. Because it is obviously going to be a big issue, right? So consider, if they haven't already considered it, and just to bring awareness to faculty that this is very likely to be an issue. And I think it is up, regardless of whether we put something out or not. First of all, this is already out there. So if someone wants really to use something, they can go use what's already written, right? But it's the faculty member ultimately has to be the one communicating it, right? So if someone's like Elizabeth was just saying about the concern of, well, students are going to have this expectation. I'm sorry, you come into my classroom where we are going to set the expectation, right? We're going to have that conversation in my classroom, regardless of the expectations of students walking in with, right? So it is the faculty member's responsibility. But back to my point of, I do think faculty need to be aware of this potential problem. And if there are, issues where they miss a lot, that we already have policy in place for that. So it doesn't sound to me, perhaps this will change if we soften this syllabus write-up a bit. Doesn't seem like there's enough support here. Perhaps there is. But either way, see, I blame the bleach. I'm going in circles here. There's policy in place for those extenuating circumstances, and awareness, I think, is the number one thing.
So thank you for that, Ruth. So before we break today's meeting, can I just get a feel for, are we re-agendizing this or are we not? Because I feel like perhaps we're not. Tara.
It sounds to me like there isn't much support for crafting the language an instructor should use on a syllabus, but there is the need for us to put before faculty some potential circumstances. Maybe we need to create some best practices or guidelines for faculty, cluing them in on resources that are available, reminding them that it's always important to be flexible during a pandemic, but also to be honest with our students for what we are capable of doing.
So is that an ad hoc group activity? Is that a full Senate activity? Is that an FRC activity?
FRC seems like a good place for this, I think.
They don't necessarily work at our will. So, Jenny?
I think it would also depend on, how specific you want that statement to be. If it's including things like best practices, et cetera, that's going to get pretty detailed, as opposed to a broader statement just about faculty being mindful about the issue as a whole. So.
So can I get some direction about what that is, Anna?
I still think that it would be helpful. Sorry, my dog is about to bark, I think. For faculty to have this information. I don't think, I'm happy to work on it if folks are wanting to do it as an ad hoc thing. I also think it could be something that folks communicate in whatever capacity works for them. I'm thinking about as students register for classes, maybe there's messages that are sent out that say like, this is a critical participation class, make sure that you're aware of that, just so students understand where that's coming from. And at the same time, I do think it's important for people to grapple with the question that Elizabeth posed, where some students have the expectation that they can be provided information online. I think that is true for many people. And so I do think it's important for faculty to wrestle with that, which is the only reason I actually think it would be beneficial for us to have a little more conversation as a whole Senate.
So I'm hearing support to bring this back at our next meeting for discussion.
From me, yes.
Robbie, and then we should.
I think Jenny's point was well made, that if we provide sample language or best practices, that it's going to get really complicated really quickly. Maybe the thing to do is for us to just report it out with the other reports we all make to our division. And so maybe a few of us can work on it, like Anna said, we can discuss it again next time and just report it out with our reports. You know, not providing sample language but just encouraging people to really wrestle with the information as has been discussed.
Okay. Joy?
Yeah, I want to second what Robbie said. I just, with my division with theater and music, you know, I really want to take it back to the individual departments and have them have an organized statement. Maybe there can be some consistency within the particular discipline. But I think that we could use our time better, or not better in Senate, but you know, I think we should definitely put this on the specific disciplines rather than try to spend a lot of time crafting language that will fit a whole bunch of different sizes and needs. That's it.
Okay, right on. So as I understood this item, we are going to share out to our divisions the overall conversation and the item that we had here, soliciting feedback, and then returning this item on our next agenda, not necessarily in the vein of crafting language, but around a discussion of how do we support faculty, how do we support students, how do we share the sentiment out. Robbie's giving me a thumbs up from Anna. Okay, right on. All right, well, I need to put in my order to Los Agaves because it's Wednesday. I do that every Wednesday. And
have them stop at my house on the way.
Sure. And we're over time, so let's get out of here. Yeah. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.